Yes, we are heading over to Trago Two Wheels today to once again pick up a brand new motorbike. It feels like 5 minutes ago I was heading over to Trago Two Wheels to pick up my son's Lexmoto LXR. Today I'm picking up a Lexmoto LXR SE 125 and I'm picking this up for my son's friend. She has decided to get into biking. In fact, she's wanted to get into biking for some time and she's finally taken the plunge and has bought a brand new Lexmoto LXR SE 125. But the reason why I'm picking up the bike is because she hasn't yet done her CBT, so she needed somebody to pick up the bike. Of course, I'm happy to do that favour for her. The bike of course doesn't need an MOT for 3 years and they've taxed it for her, so I've set up some temp bike cover just to head over and ride the bike back for her. Of course, the shop is no longer there. That's where I picked up my son's bike from, and I didn't know that the shop had moved. Last time I came over here and I went to go to the shop, I thought it had closed, but apparently it hasn't closed. It's just moved into the main building. I have no idea where in the main building, so I'm gonna have to find it.
Well, I found the shop. It wasn't difficult to find at all, and I'm doing exactly what it says on the tin here. And here she is, and I have to say, Lexmoto, they do make a good looking bike. I actually knew someone that had one of these and I really wanted to ride it. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to before he sold the bike. So I'm well excited today to get the opportunity to ride one of these and see what it's like compared to the LXS. And I thought the LXS was going to be like my YZF, and it was completely different. So let's get her out on the road and just see just how different or similar this is to an LXS and a YZF.
Okay then, the dashboard. I'm used to having a digital speedo and an analog rev counter. I'm not against a full screen like this. I actually quite like this one. We need fuel. They only ever put 2 litres in them from new. Looks like we've got a gear indicator. Let's give her a whirl. Now I could go to that petrol station, but there's always like 50 cars waiting there. And given the MPG of a 125, I think I'll be good on 2 litres just to go to Bovey Straits. Feels good so far. I just didn't feel the brake lever there under my foot. I can feel it now. It's been a while since I had to look down to see where my controls were. I guess I really do get used to my own bikes. Okay, so we're moving. How does it feel? Actually feels really nice. And in terms of riding position, for those of you that don't know or may not have watched my videos before, I'm 6'2", so I'm never really going to struggle to fit on a bike, even bikes that have tall seats. And that means that when I'm on my sports bikes, I'm not leant forward as much as some people are, but I do still feel it. I ride a YZF 125 and a Daytona 675. I am a little bit more hunched over on the Daytona, admittedly, but on this I'm very upright. Yes, it's a very upright motorbike. I'm trying to see what shall I compare it to. I am going to compare it to the LXS in regards riding position, and I am going to compare it to my YZF. Both 125s, similar bikes, similar power output. I think it's only fair that I make a comparison with the riding positions. So with the YZF you are a little bit more hunched over, you do get that true sports bike position. The LXS surprised me, but that was partly my own ignorance, because I thought the LXS was a sport bike when it's actually a sport tourer. And so the LXS is a lot more upright, very nimble, and you can chuck it about. In comparison then, LXR SE, again, more upright, definitely more upright, very similar to the LXS. It does seem to like to lean into the corners, and what's going on with my right foot there takes me back to doing my DAS. You see, on my DAS I was riding an MT-07 and it had a cage, it had a crash cage, and every time I went to use the rear brake, my right foot hit the cage. And what you've got on the LXR SE here, the rear brake pedal is in the right position, it's where you want it to be. But I've got a size 10, maybe size 11 foot, and I keep finding the fairing there. I don't know why. I guess I'll get used to it. Okay then, we have fuel, we have 4 miles on the clock. Oh, I love it, takes me back. Maybe one day I'll be picking up a brand new motorbike, although those of you that know me will know that I like my older bikes. My Daytona's 19 for example, but I find it quite rewarding actually to have the privilege to be riding a brand new bike, albeit it's not my bike. 5 miles on the clock, very, very nice. So I have to head to Exeter now, and I decided that whilst I could just go up the A road, it would be very quick and very boring. So I'm going to take this bike through Bovey and Chudley, and if you're local you'll know, if you're not I apologise. But I'm going to take this bike through Bovey and Chudley, and then probably through the roads around Haldon Forest, and eventually I will come out on the main road that I could otherwise have used. Okay, that was a nice little stint at what, 45, 50? It is always, as much as it's a privilege to ride a new bike, and it really is a privilege, it is also a little bit nerve-wracking when it's someone else's bike, regardless of how old the bike is. You know, when you ride someone else's bike, it just doesn't matter the age of the bike, it doesn't matter what it is. And I've ridden other bikes, my mate's Cafe Racer and my other mate's Honda Rebel. It is always a little bit nerve-wracking when you're riding someone else's bike, but to be riding someone else's brand new bike, nerve-wracking and a privilege at the same time. It is a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. It really does feel like the LXS. It has that upright riding position. The lean into the corners is slightly different, but it adds a very similar feel, very similar sound. We are about to head into the twisty roads that are known as Bradley Bends. and there's a couple of vans in front of us, which I don't mind. Maybe I would do if I was on one of my bikes, but on this brand new bike that isn't mine, I will be taking it easy. Okay, so whilst we're doing a little bit of a slow stretch here, these are lovely twisty roads regardless of speed, but let's see what we actually have here. 125cc, which I believe puts out about 12 horsepower, and lovely dashboard as I mentioned. We've got temperature gauge there, fuel gauge, odometer, clock, digital speedo, gear indicator. Thank you once again, Lexmoto, for understanding that learners need gear indicators. We've got a rev counter up at the top there. I think we have everything we need, and now it's time to pick up the roads up to and through Haldon Forest. A very nice and picturesque place to take a bike, any bike, particularly when it's dry. I have been up here when it's wet and it's doable, but if you can avoid the leaves and the mud and the crap, this is the time to be riding around Haldon Forest. Okay, I think I'll turn right here. Yes. Okay, so we have 14 miles on the clock. We had 4 when we left the garage, so we probably only had about 2 miles on the clock when we picked the bike up. So we've done about 12 miles, and I said I was going to make a comparison with the LXS and the YZF, and I've made a few comparisons immediately. But now that we've done a dozen miles, I have to say I really enjoy riding this bike. I love it, but I can't compare it to the YZF because it's nothing like the YZF. It's just like the LXS. Some slight differences in regards to the feel. Obviously the two bikes look completely different, but they feel so similar. And once again, Lexmoto have surprised me with just how good the bike feels. I'm just pulling in here, not to get a McDonald's, but to have a closer look at the bike.
Okay, so as I said on the ride, the first thing that I noticed riding this bike was that I kept on introducing my foot to the fairing here. So if you have big feet like me, size 10s, 11s, anything like that, you might find yourself introducing your toes at least to the fairing, and I did that on both sides. It's no different on this side, and it's just because the fairing comes out so far. As I mentioned, this is a chunky bike, and it's not a problem introducing your feet to your fairings. It's just one of those things that you'd get used to. By day 2 of my DAS, I was used to the cage that was on the MT-07, and I was used to kicking it. I guess you would just get used to it. I noticed in the petrol station as well, the bike does lean a lot. And again, it's not a problem, it's just one of those things on a first ride that I noticed. It seems to lean over a lot. And I don't think it's not like it's going to fall over or anything, just leans a lot more than I'm accustomed to. And then on the ride, these indicators, they're up here. I'm used to them being down here somewhere. This is where they normally are. Certainly on, I think, all of the bikes I've seen that I can think of, definitely my bikes, and yeah, the indicators are down here somewhere. But you're up here and you're riding the bike and you can literally see your indicators right there. They're almost attached to your dashboard. I wonder what it looks like from the front. See, it does work. I'm not sure if I thought it looked funny at first. It was just different, but actually it does work. I think maybe with those lights and the aggressive looks of the bike, that having them up there just underneath your mirror arms, it does work. Yeah, Lexmoto with their twin disc setup on a 125. Seen that on the LXS and I thought that was a bit overkill. Maybe it's more for show than actual function, but they work fine. I use the back brake a lot when I'm riding, always have done. It's just part of my riding style that I do use the back brake a lot, hence why I kick the fairing straight away. But I've used the front brake on the ride over here, on the dozen miles that we've done, and front brake's absolutely fine. L plate positioning, because let's be honest, most riders are going to have an L plate. I really should have covered that up, but I didn't have anything to cover it up with, so I'm riding on L plates again for a short ride. L plate positioning then, plenty of room on the front of the bike. You're not going to have to worry about having somewhere to put your L plate. The rear's never a problem, but I always like a bike with a tail tidy, and I guess there's an option here that you could if you wanted to. I'm not sure if they're available. I can't imagine that they're not. It's not bad actually, as far as a number plate arm goes. It's not what you normally see on bikes where it's kind of like all the way down here, and hence there's a desperate need on a new bike to get a tail tidy. I've seen a lot worse. As far as a number plate arm goes, that's not bad at all. I could probably even live with that. I wonder if one of the seats comes off. In fact, I'm probably going to need the key for this just in case it does. Let's see if we have a lock anywhere. It's probably the pillion seat. Yes, it is. There we go. Yeah. So, some limited storage maybe, depending on what you're going to put in there. You're not going to fit a sandwich in there. Maybe a disc lock. If anything, you could probably find a way of storing a disc lock in there. At least there's something. Now that should just... yeah, that should just slide back in here. Try and do this one-handed. If that slides in, that should... yep. Nope. Yep. Right, that's clicked into place. Yeah. Well, nice to know there's a tiny little bit of storage anyway. So, could I live with this bike? Absolutely I could. Now I am biased because I love my 125s. Yes, I have my big bike and I love my big bike, but I still love my 125s. But if I cast my mind back to when I first started riding 7 years ago, and imagine that I'm just starting riding now and I decided not to get the YZF that I got, could I live with this bike? Yes. I know I'm repeating myself, but absolutely I could live with this bike. It is lovely to ride, it's lovely and upright. I think in hindsight this video was going to be like comparing this to the LXS, because it was always going to be the best comparator. And this bike, I don't want to say it's just an LXS, because it's not. It's a fantastic bike in its own right. But having ridden the LXS, I can tell you that this is like a chunkier version. And when you put the two together, that's exactly what they look like. They are exactly what they look like. This is wider. It does spread your legs a little bit because it's a chunky bike. There's a bit more dashboard there. It is like a big LXS, and it's been an absolute pleasure to ride this bike. I now need to just finish my ride off and give this bike back to its new owner, who I know is going to be over the moon with this bike.